My name is Ryan Lewis. I live in Big Island, Hawaii. I'm 31 years old. Oh man, I consider it one of the biggest, biggest turning points in my life. Probably the first one, really, that really started to catapult me to this path of self-evolution. Was just starting to be more mindful about the way I treat my body through my diet, which is just like obviously a gigantic factor. We have all these input mechanisms, but you know, the physical matter, that's food, that makes up our bodily tissue, and all the other stuff that goes on is massive. And when I kind of started it for health and for weight loss and for things like that, more maybe you know, surface level stuff, but once I did it, so like all these rewards kept coming into place, and I really just felt, the main thing is a bit abstract, but it's like I felt like a lighter karma, like my karma just like lifted, like I was just like felt like so much lighter, and such like less weight in my emotions and my energetic state. Yeah, I just felt really a lot better about my relationship with life and with the planet and all the beings around me. So I grew up as like a fat kid. I was always overweight, obese, from just like a toddler, and I struggled with it for a while. I mean, I was dieting a lot. Like my folks had me in Weight Watchers and on diets, and they were really trying to help. Like, thought I had like a metabolic issue or whatever it was, but it was a real struggle. Like I tried so many things. I experienced little bits of progress, but I would always, you know, fall back, and it was just like a cycle, like a rut. And it wasn't until like I was in college, and I don't know, I feel like my maturity just reached a pinnacle where I was ready to release, you know, this burden that I've been carrying around all my life, where I really wasn't feeling like resonance with my image. Like when I looked in the mirror, I just didn't feel like who I really was. So I was ready to step more into that, which I feel like I've been doing ever since. But in that way, it was with my physical form and my body weight. And I started changing my diet, eating much more responsibly, treating myself better, and I went from almost 300 pounds to down to probably like 175 now, and feel just better than I ever expected. I kind of always, you know, had faith in that I would eventually, you know, lose weight or find like a healthy body, but you know, I had no idea how it would actually feel, I guess, like, and it's pretty miraculous. I'm actually very thankful for my history with being out of shape, because it just being able to do handstands and swim and just play and just, you know, look how I feel and who I feel I am. It's super rewarding, and it's just, life just continues to amaze. Well, I mean, when I first went vegan, I was definitely a champion for it when I first started to feel what the rewards of it and what all the implications that started to fall into place. And I feel very strongly with the possibilities of how more vegan awareness and more people practicing veganism is going to help us evolve as a planetary system into more harmony as a society, and the way things function, and how we're in our relationship with the planet. But yeah, I also realize now at this point, with all the growth I've done in awareness and kind of just in examining the other aspects of life, my relationships, and just the way I frame my message to the world, is that, you know, I do recognize that just like myself, there is a course to be on, and you know, I'm sure obviously some people don't get there in this lifetime, is to make these rapid changes, but I think as long as people are just, you know, honed in on with awareness of their practices and, you know, kind of the relationship they're having, if they choose to, you know, eat meat or whatever it may be, just like, as long as you like sit with it and look into it, and if you feel good about that, and you're like that's okay for you to engage, like whatever all the implications of that industry or whatever it may be, I can't argue with someone to make their choice, but for me, absolutely, like veganism is like at this point a no-brainer. Like I can't imagine any other way. I would never crave another way, because I just realized how much harmony has lent to my life, and how great I feel about giving that to the world. Like just dropping all those other things that I feel like really can carry some burdens. Yeah, I mean, diet was huge. That was something that I really needed to nail, and I spent 3 years, like, I went vegan for almost a year, and then when I started to find out about raw foods and realize how important they were for me and how much health they brought me, I practiced them solely for 3 years, and I spent most of my time like in that, like studying, engaging community, finding other people to talk with about raw foods, and reading about nutrition and the physiology and all these things. And then once I feel like I started to gain a level of mastery, like I was really drawn to, I didn't expect this, but I was drawn to like different levels of my being and the growth of myself. And it kind of started with I guess a more spiritual side of my life, and practicing yoga and finding a deeper level of my peace that the karmic release of veganism didn't necessarily grant me, like to hone in on the more intricate aspects. And I started practicing yoga, which was huge. Ashtanga yoga has been really amazing for me to just have that sort of bodily practice, to where I'm like sitting with myself in peace, and just feel like I'm giving something to my spirit, like honing in for that period. And with that, the next step for me was starting to learn about meditation, and going through a Vipassana course was one of the most pivotal points of my life, big time. And just really again getting into the deeper levels of my being, and sitting and watching my mind and how it works, and also just my emotions, whatever came up during all that 100 hours of sitting during the course was pretty instrumental in getting another level of peace, and feeling like I know myself greater. The move to Hawaii was really huge. I had almost an epiphany before I came here 2 years ago, and I sat and just really fell into kind of the stepping out of myself and branching away, because I was 28 years old, and I was still living with my parents for a good portion of the year, because I was traveling a lot during the previous years, and I didn't want to like go and rent a place, because I knew I'd spend most of the year in other countries and stuff. So I just used that as my home base, and it was a great platform for me. There was a lot of love in my household, but I had this moment where I was sitting, and I just felt that that even though I could be there and I would still be under the loving care of my family and the familiarity of my friends and my environment that I grew up in, I wouldn't quite reach the full expression of my soul in this lifetime if I chose to just continue down that path. So I felt that really branching out and going to find myself in other avenues was the way to do it. And it was a big part of this festival was why I felt like I needed to do that, because I realized every time I stepped here and at a completely different community and a different environment to where I can just be whoever I was in that moment, I realized that I was more of myself, rather than trying to stick to any patterns or expectations of the people around me. And Hawaii really embodies a lot of what the values are here for this place, the community, just the real transparency and authenticity, and the devotion to relationships and self-growth and nature. And it's just a really beautiful place in the community and in the environment and the foods, and it's fantastic living in the tropics and living on that island. I think a lot of it would be this biochemical thing going on that maybe is not even quite understood by science or anything, but I think that a lot of people kind of hint at it with what goes on with the livestock industry. The profit kind of intent behind all that stuff, and the violence and viciousness and the confinement and torture and, you know, rape and the separation of animal families and all this really traumatic stuff that's super heavy is really all tied into that exchange that people are still, you know, engaging, hopefully releasing at this point where we're seeing much more of a trend towards veganism and cleaner practices. But I think just the release of that much heaviness would have huge implications for the way we engage with each other, the way we treat ourselves with our thoughts and with our personal practices, the way we have relationships, the way we treat the planet. And I think it's just, besides all of, like, the actual specific things of, you know, the water usage or the land usage, or it's just like really this big picture stuff that of how much we can see and feel harmony with this whole environment and have a more of a unity consciousness versus maybe more like self-aggrandizing tactics and thought patterns and things like that. If I had a message to the world, I would say, as often as you can, check in with yourself, sit with yourself, and just maybe just observe or ask some questions. Maybe like, what makes me happy, really, truly, deeply in the moment and beyond the moment? What do I feel like is my passion in life? What through my reflections and my own excitement do I feel like I should be giving to the world, rather than, you know, what I studied in school or where my job is now or where I live now. Really, like, what do we want, and like, what's our ideal, and how can we actually step into that? Because, you know, I don't think there's any real excuses when it gets down to it. I mean, yeah, excuses are all self-imposed, and I think just the recognition of ultimate freedom in life, and to just be as different as you want to be, or as the same as you want to be, is all a choice. So I have some stuff of my own. I have a YouTube channel, RyLew, R-Y-L-E-W. My name is Ryan Lewis, and I have a recipe book called Homestyle Vegan. It's like really awesome traditional family recipes from my mother and my grandmother and previous generations, that slowly, over my learning and my growth, we've kind of tailored towards vegan, really clean, oil-free, gluten-free versions of the dishes, and they're just really fantastic. So it's an ebook, and yeah, I do graphic design. I got art, but RyLew.com will take you right to my YouTube channel, and you can see more information there.